Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Raiders Daily, where we post daily Las Vegas Raiders content. If that is something you enjoy this video, hit that like button, hit that sub button. OTAs officially began for the Raiders yesterday, going on today as well. And keep in mind, these aren't mandatory, but finally, football is back. Finally, football is back. So I have one specific I've got other storylines that we'll be covering here in the next couple of days, next couple of weeks, until I think the first mandatory OTA is June 7th. So we're going to be covering all the storylines. Today I need to talk about the wide receiver position. I have this interesting, bold prediction. I've been reading some articles on Ndamukong Suh, and it doesn't look like he will be returning to the Buccaneers. I forget what other team is rumored to be interested in him. It might have been like the Ravens, or maybe even a team like the Broncos. I can't remember who it was, but it was an AFC squad. And like the AFC, especially the AFC West right now, is pretty much like an arms race. Like it is getting juicy because it's completely loaded. More specifically, the AFC West it's completely loaded. So signings like Ndamukong Suh, while long term, like you're not gonna, like Ndamukong would get signed to a 1-year contract, right? It's not like you're building the next 5 years with 35-year-old Suh. But all these low-key signings, they're going to have an impact later on in the season once we start getting to the playoffs and a little bit deeper in the playoffs, which I fully anticipate the Raiders being there for. So my big thing is, I think personally the Raiders are going to I think they're going to hit a homer. They don't need a defensive tackle, but I think they're going to hit a homer, sign Ndamukong Suh, and then go sign a bigger name free agent wide receiver, and then extend Hunter. And that might be it as far as the offseason moves are concerned. But I want to talk about the wide receiver position right now because, if you've been watching this channel, I'm very big on Derek Carr and Davante Adams connection, because they combined for 38 touchdowns in the 2 seasons they played together. If you watch, I'll try and throw up some highlight clips, but I know the NFL doesn't like that. Basically, they have such a good connection, or they had such a good connection. Davante, to me, best wide receiver in the entire NFL. Derek Carr, I think he's a really solid top quarterback in the league. Obviously not, at Brady or Rodgers level quite yet, but I anticipate him having an MVP season, and I anticipate Davante Adams getting double teamed just about every possession, which is going to help open up the field for Hunter to just be Mr. Consistent, Mr. Reliable, and then Darren Waller. So I think red zone issues are going to be, for the most part, I don't want to go as far to say is fixed, but I do want to say I think it's going to be significantly better. I think that the offense is going to run a lot, especially in the passing game, but with the run game as well, with an improved offensive line and a healthy Josh Jacobs. I think the offense in general is just going to move. It's going to work a lot more fluidly. The wide receiver battle is something I still have an issue with, which is why I alluded to earlier in the video about, I still think the Raiders are going to go out and try and get a big name free agent. Like, I'm not saying you need to go sign injured Julio Jones. I'm not saying you need to go out sign injured Odell Beckham Jr., who can only play at the end of the season because he tore his ACL. But when I look at the wide receiver depth right now, we have Davante. Hunter's wide receiver 2, but he's going to be in the slot, right? So kind of your wide receiver 2, it's going to be a battle, right? We have Matt Collins. We're talking to Marcus Robinson, and we're talking Keelan Cole. Now, each of them possess something very niche, I would say. When we look at Keelan, and I think Keelan's going to come away with I think he's going to win the battle, but I don't think Keelan is as good as some people are kind of getting hyped up about. I made a video about Keelan being, underrated as far as the NFL, as far as his NFL career goes. I mean, this is a guy who has never been injured in the NFL. Keelan Cole has never been or missed a game due to an injury. So you can rely on this guy. You can get deep into the season and not worry about Keelan Cole getting injured. I just don't want Keelan to be wide receiver 2, have to rely on him, later on in the playoffs. Like, to me, he's more of a good insurance, more of a situational wide receiver where like I said, if Devontae goes down with an injury, if Hunter goes down with an injury, even if Darren Waller goes down with an injury, it's going to make the Raiders' offense a lot more less fluid. It's going to be a lot more easier. Like, Devontae goes down, even if it's for 3 games, weeks 16, 17, 18, or 17, 18 in the first round of the playoffs, that's a huge blow. It's a huge blow. I know Derek Carr. I know Hunter. I know this squad. I've got a lot of faith in McDaniels. I know that they're going to be able to pull off victories, but God forbid, you got to expect the worst. You got to prepare for the worst. So if Devontae, say, week 16 goes down for the rest of the season, I don't want to have to rely on Keelan Cole and Demarcus Robinson. I would rather have them be the complementary pieces, if that makes sense. I want them to be complementary assets at the wide receiver position for Derek Carr and the Raiders offense. Who do I think is going to win the wide receiver battle? I still think it's going to be Keelan. He's a very solid deep threat. He's a very solid contested catch threat. However, we haven't, it's not like he's had a QB like Derek Carr before, so who knows? Maybe he's going to have a breakout season because he's been, I don't want to say stuck with the Jaguars, but he's been stuck with the Jaguars. Demarcus Robinson, I think, to me, would be the second most likely to come away with wide receiver 2. I like Mac. I just don't think he's ready yet. I don't think he's at that level quite yet. Demarcus is another even more complimentary piece to me. Seems like a phenomenal yard. Like, he's fast as hell, dude. Seems like a phenomenal yards after catch asset. And deep balls, I know his sample size, I don't have the stats in front of me. I know his sample size is very small and limited because he's playing, with Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill. Like, he's far in that depth chart. But his stats, although it's very, very minimal, they were elite as far as deep routes are concerned. So you have another deep threat right there, because we look at a guy like Davante Adams, you don't think of Davante Adams as a deep threat. You don't think of Hunter Renfrow as a deep threat. They can be deep threats, but that's not the first thing that comes to mind. So this is why I've been so big on signings like Will Fuller. Consistent deep threat. Will Fuller, when healthy, is one of the fastest wide receivers in the entire NFL. So, like I said, man, I like the 3 dudes that are going to be competing for this spot. But, I'd even take, like, a Zay Jones over him. Like, as crazy as that may seem, I'd still rather have, like, a Zay Jones, Bryan Edwards. Like, I'd rather have a Bryan Edwards above those players. So, you don't need to sign Odell. You don't need to sign Julio. But you'd get Will Fuller really cheap because he has never had a healthy season in his 6-year NFL career. Never had a healthy season. So I know that there's some issues and some concerns with that. So maybe you're thinking more of a T.Y. Hilton, who's also had injury concerns. I can't think of the guy there was a solid wide receiver up on the block that I, for some reason, can't think of right now that I wouldn't mind if the Raiders went out and signed him. I'm probably going to go find it and make a video on it. But I'm really curious, who do you guys, who do you think is going to be wide receiver 2, or who do you want to be wide receiver 2? Ideally, you say both of those 2 scenarios. But be sure to hit the like button, hit that sub button. I appreciate all you guys for tuning into today's video. But most importantly, go ahead, drop a comment down below. Who do you want to be wide receiver 2? It doesn't even necessarily have to be any of those 3. Could be somebody else. Could be a possible signing. Could be a possible trade even. So let me know. Peace.